Hey everybody, I'm Matt Valley. Welcome to episode number 137 of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. Well, hey, today's guest is Doug Keith, whom I met just about 1 year ago. It was at IIEX in Austin last year, where I had the good fortune to be doing a live version of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast. My guest then was a guy named Nicholas Gianti, episode number 114. He was from IBM Red Hat, a user experience researcher. Super fun chat, really cool and fun to do it live. Doug and I chatted afterward, had just a great chat about insights and research, but then it quickly turned to music. Because Doug is a bass player, I'm a drummer. There's a special bond between the two. That's kind of how it goes. So we just had a great chat, and I'm super excited to be here continuing that conversation today. So a couple things I can tell you about Doug. He's spent basically his entire career in insights and research-based consulting. After starting working for some great agencies like Kantar and some others, he's been on his own for about 18 years with future research consulting, right?
Correct.
Future research consulting, 18 years, which is a heck of a run. So he's got lots of happy clients, I'm sure of that. So very cool and a very, very smart and sharp guy. Now, speaking of IIEX, I do want to mention it is April 2025, and IIEX North America is happening at the end of this month, April 30th and May 1st. This time it is in Washington, D.C. I'm sure some of you listening will be there. And if you are, certainly come up and say hello. I have the good fortune to be chairing one of the speaking tracks this year. So I'll essentially be working, but I'll be easy to find. So come up and say hello. Doug will also be at IIEX this year, so very excited. The speaker lineup is just outstanding, one of the best I've ever seen. So I think it's going to be a wonderful conference. So if you haven't registered already, certainly consider it. So with that, we're going to get into it. Welcome to the podcast, Doug.
Thanks so much for having me. It's funny at IIEX, they had that really cool space where it was nothing but people recording their podcasts. And I don't think I kind of knew who you were, but I had never met you. And all it took was rock and roll research. I'm like, the rock and roll part, what is the story with that? And then when I saw it was the person from Red Hat, I thought, oh, that'd be really interesting to hear that person talk, because I do UX and usability work. And then listening to it, I loved how it just kind of weaved in and out and in and out and in and out. So I could talk about music in particular for hours on. I have multiple group chats going with multiple musicians and friends, and so it's really cool to see that juxtaposition of the two.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I'm still here doing it. I'm still enjoying it. 137 episodes in.
Amazing.
And I shall continue to do so. So now, before we get into the questions, Doug, I do want to say a couple things about this really awesome company that's been helping me out. They're called Magic Mind. Here you can see this like this. This is what it looks like. It is a mental performance enhancement shot. One shot like this down the hatch in the morning. I take it with my son Nelson. He likes it too. This is a great product because it gives me a sharper mind, gives me calm energy, lowers my stress, gives me that just great energy that keeps me going throughout the day. So I have it first thing in the morning. It has all these great ingredients that my doctor has recommended. Stuff like ashwagandha, lion's mane, all kinds of crazy stuff. This is my vehicle for taking those supplements that my doctor says, Matt, you should be taking this stuff. My son does too. It's safe for us both. We really enjoy it. Really sets us up for success each day. Can do the same for you as well if you're listening. So if you're interested in giving it a try, there's a very nice discount on a one-time use at magicmind.com/RNRLT. That's like rock and roll, RNRLT. And an even better discount on a subscription if you're ready to jump right in. So why don't you give it a shot? Let me know what you think. And with that, let's get started, Doug. All right. So as you know, I always like to start with the research side. And it looks like just kind of looking at LinkedIn, looking at your career progression, it looks like you kind of started in insights. So tell us how that came to be and give us a little bit of how your career has unfolded.
Sure. So I think it's interesting from looking at my LinkedIn page. I'm gonna have to go back and look at it and see what I have on there because, like a lot of people in research, I didn't have dreams as a 10-year-old of being a market researcher.
Go
Um,
figure.
I know. At QRCA, I was doing a talk towards the end of the conference, and before the talk, I just said, "How many people here said I'm going to be a market researcher? That's what I'm." There's 150 people. I saw one person raise their hand,
Yeah.
so everybody just started laughing after that because so many paths into it. I think it's the kind of career where if just simply you're just a very curious person,
Mhm.
it just vibes with your personality. If you want to know things, you're going to spend a lot of time learning things. But I have an undergraduate degree in journalism from the University of South Carolina, and I spent the first 4 years of my career working in public broadcasting. So
Ah,
I
interesting.
worked, yeah, in South Carolina. So I worked on the air. I recorded shows. I produced series. I would go out and record all types of music live, put together specials. I had a couple of things were nationally syndicated, and it was an unbelievable experience for someone who liked alternative music. I worked
Yeah,
at a
that's really neat.
radio station, and that's all I felt like playing and hearing was, REM was getting big right then. And it's like I
Yeah,
could just listen to that all day. And then I show up at this place and they said, well, for instance, like, well, we have this donor who does this bluegrass music show and he's terrible. So we want you to work with him. I'm like, what's bluegrass? And I want to do that. And they said, no, you're doing it. And so for 4 years, I ended up producing this show. And then, I heard about people like Alison Krauss when she was 16 years old. And all of a
wow.
sudden I'm like, wow, there's really something going on here. And so it was like that with I did a new music show where I play all kinds of new music, or I do like sets of yes, but like sort of just really progressive because it was a late night show or like ambient music U2. So I loved
Sure.
talking about music, listening music, being on the air was always fun. And then I ended up going back to school to get a master's in communications, thinking I would stay in public
Sure.
broadcasting.
Hmm.
And I worked at the campus radio station there. And I think a little part of me was kind of like, do you really want to keep doing this? And then I took a research methods class and for my program. And this is pretty interesting because I never think about what I make. I just make things and I don't know if anybody wants them. And maybe I
Right.
could learn another side of the business if I learn this sort of research part and see it from
Yeah.
the other side. So I didn't learn that much about it in my graduate program. So it took me a while to actually work my way into it. Did a lot of informational interviews. I ended up teaching college full time for a year where I audited a survey methods class and a stats class. And still the stats class was terrible, but I can tell you a little bit about probability and that's it. And but then one of the companies I'd done informational interview with, I ended up getting a job, but I was my first job in research, but I was 30 years old. So I'd already been out of
Wow.
school for 8 years, doing a lot of other things that I think in the end really inform what I'm doing now because I do have probably tell, I have varied interests. And
Yeah.
it's funny, we talk about music, art. I write screenplays, I've directed short films, and like I've used my interviewing techniques in the documentaries that I've done, and then I think about the structure of a film when I'm putting together a report. So I love
Yeah.
having all these things that feed in, and I think so many of us are like that. We've come from other disciplines,
Yep.
uh, and it could be, the side thing like marketing, but it might be one of my good friends. That Mary Hunter, she has an art history degree, and she's a master,
Yes.
in art. And
That's
she'd worked in
also a
museums.
previous guest on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, that's another person just found their way into it, and I think that definitely fits my story. Found my way into it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna say something. I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I think one of the things that's so interesting about insights and market research, it in contrast to say something like accounting, right, is that for the most part, accounting is accounting. Doesn't matter where you come from, you're doing accounting. But if you're talking about really uncovering insights, uh, you bring your own background and your own experiences to the discipline of the work that you're doing. And so different people with different backgrounds, different routes that they've taken to this space, different experiences along the way, that really does inform how you think and might operate as an insights professional. And that's one of the things that's just so fascinating to me about this profession.
I think it's also it's funny you mentioned accounting. My accountant's very important to me, so I don't want to slag on accounting. But imagine what's happening at the accounting, the equivalent of IIEX for accountants, right? And they're
Yeah.
going to the different seminars about the different aspects of tax planning, whatever it might be. When you go to a market research conference, uh, you could talk to 10 different people about 10 very different things and
Sure.
have really interesting conversations. Or people are doing there's so many different aspects of research that someone can do this one thing and I'll think like, I don't really even know that much about that. Or if you said, Doug, could you do that? I said, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
I have a good friend who's a data analyst I work with, data scientist. And basically, I'll say, like, I need this. And he's like, okay, he puts it in his black box and this amazing thing comes out. And then I give him money for it. And that's it. But I
Right.
would not be skilled at that part of it, And so,
Right.
but again, but people talk about lots of things besides market research. And I think that's what keeps me interested. If all we did was talk about market research, there would be a point where I'm like, I don't need to talk about this every minute of the day.
For sure. All right. So speaking of changing the topic away from market research, I know you've mentioned all kinds of projects that you've been involved in, but the first thing we talked about was bass, right? So I know there's two kinds of bass players. There's the kind that joins a band, starts playing guitar, joins a band, and the band needs a bass player, and so it just switches over. And then there's the one who's just so taken by the mystery of the instrument. So tell us a little bit about how you got into bass and sort of your journey there as well.
God, man, you just bucketed me into bucket A. So bucket A is me. Uh, I basically have been, playing music all my life since I was a kid. I took, little keyboard lessons, played the recorder, those types of things.
Yeah.
Sang, but just basic stuff. And then I think I was probably 13 or 14, and my parents got me a guitar, acoustic guitar for Christmas. And I think I must have been angling for it, I guess. I don't remember begging for it, but I got one and I took lessons. And I took lessons with the most amazing instructor. This is, I don't know, I'm going to date myself anyway. This is probably 1978, 79. And she was like the prototypical hippie girl
Yeah.
and, the long flowing outfit, long hair. And the coolest thing she did was she gave me modified versions of all of these rock songs to learn, like Stairway to Heaven and
Yeah.
Here Comes the Sun, things like that, but that I could learn. And then there I am playing Stairway to Heaven. I'm like, I'm doing it. And and I loved it. And then a year later, she said, look, you've gotten too good for me. I'm going to send you off to this guy. He does flat picking. I'm like, what's that? And he's playing acoustic music. What's that? And I already took a couple lessons. And the guy said, you're not really practicing. I said, yeah, because I don't really like this. I had to stop. Then I took rock guitar lessons. I could learn some bar chords. And I
Yeah.
dreamed of being a soloist, but that is a unique skill set that I do not have. But I can pick things up by ear, so I could learn songs, and I like to sing, so I could sing. And then and I played in bands in high school and in college, and I play guitar, I play saxophone, and then out of college, some friends and we were all jamming, and I said maybe we should get a band together, and we need a bass player. I said I have one of those, so I had a 3/4 scale bass that I bought off a friend of mine just to have it. It's fun to collect instruments, and so I started playing that. And I sang baritone in the choir. I played baritone, sax, and band. So I was always doing like bottom end kinds of things anyway. And when I started playing the bass, I realized like it was actually a great fit for me. So then I went into bucket B. for your two buckets
Yeah.
there, because what I loved was that I could play something simple. I'm going to just play a whole bunch of quarter notes and it'll
Uh,
sound amazing. Or I could play some complicated run once I would master it, and that could sound amazing. And I could do both things. And then sometimes I could sing, which is still, I don't know if you can sing as a drummer. I can't imagine it. I even have a hard time singing as a bass player because I'm
yeah.
trying to think about the rhythm but anyway, but I loved that I could do that whole range of things and still really contribute.
Hmm.
Um, and another thing is, yeah, it's I think I was always just looking to be myself. So I don't want to play clarinet. I'm going to play bass clarinet. Now I'm going to play bari sax. There's three of us. I'm going to be
Yeah.
baritone. So many people want to be tenor, be Geddy Lee, which I would love to have been, but I'm not that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think I just like the bottom end. And it's
Yeah.
just like a good fit. The only drag of it is, and you might have this when you play drums, if I'm going to play a song just for fun, after I've played like the four riffs,
Yeah.
if I'm playing by myself, I'm like, well, what do I do now? Think of another riff to play. It's like kind of over.
Too funny. So, did that sort of materialize into sort of a life of playing in bands, or has it all just been kind of private behind closed doors sort of thing?
Yeah. So yeah, it did for a while.
Yeah.
And I know you still play music, and so I played in that band when I started playing bass. Then I was in South Carolina, moved to Pennsylvania, no band. My wife's a physical therapist, starts a new job, comes home one day and says, another physical therapist says their band needs a bass player. So I went and tried out. And it's funny, the drummer said something like, Doug, you know the songs, you're in. And later the singer told me like nobody else got the vote. He just said you're in. And what I loved was that previous band, we were just playing covers, and I always wanted to be Bono or, Simon Le Bon or something. So I
Yeah.
loved playing the covers. But then when we were doing original music, I became a much better musician because I was writing my own parts. I wasn't
Yeah.
memorizing someone else's parts. And I did two albums with them. And then we had the arc of behind the music, where
Yeah.
things go great, then something goes wrong. And like, everything happened
And
to us,
drama.
except nobody knew who we were. But for us, that's what we experienced.
Yeah.
And I'd started my first job in research in New York. So I was trekking back and forth to New Jersey to practice. And then I came back, and 1 year later, they would just move on without me. Like, oh, we recorded some stuff. Like, that was important to me. So I was
Yeah.
kind of like, on the way to the breakup. I'm still really good friends with all those guys. And the singer's a prolific songwriter. And so I've made music videos for his current band. And he was doing a concept album and wants some feedback on the writing part of it. And so I gave him feedback. So yeah, they're still good friends, but I realized now they're 24-hour twins, and I realized it kind of went against the rest of my life. Like play till 2 in the morning and then sleep till 10. Or my wife would say, well, so when are you going to do something kind of thing? And I even kind of decided maybe that's not where I wanted to spend all my time. So I've got an array of instruments behind me,
Yeah.
and I'm all regularly picking them up and playing them. And I discovered Chordify, the magic Chordify app, where you can just say this song and it plays, and there's the chords. It even shows you music video and all the lyrics. And now I'm just playing a song. As soon as I figure it out, I'll play it. Nope, I'm just
Yeah.
jamming along to it, which is really cool. So I still play in my own way for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So this band that you played with, what was it stylistically? If you could give some.
Sure. So that last band I played in, by the way, called Dipsomaniacs, which is an uncontrollable urge to drink alcohol. It already had the name when I joined, and you can't believe the many ways it was butchered. Nobody ever knew what it was, but um, I started playing with them in '92, right when grunge started to take off.
Yeah.
And the singer really loved like the Replacements.
Yes.
And
My
yeah,
all-time favorite band.
really, yeah.
Oh, I'm from Minnesota, man. It's
Oh, there you go.
how
So
I roll.
yeah, so I think that's probably Paul Westerberg and Bob Dylan are probably this guy's like main inspirations. And
Dude.
yeah, and so and of course I knew the Replacements, but then I really started listening to them and just absolutely fell in love with them. But that was the great thing about it is we play out in bars, and the covers we were playing, we loved because it was popular music. So we played
Yeah.
Nirvana song, Red Hot Chili Peppers song, Soul Asylum. Really love Soul Asylum,
Yeah.
also from
Another great
Minnesota.
Minnesota band.
Yeah, exactly. And so I loved it all. And it wasn't like, well, now you guys got to play, I don't know, Backstreet Boys. Well, we don't want to play that, but you're getting paid. No, we're playing popular music, and then the style of music we're doing kind of fit with that. Sometimes it replacements probably does kind of some little shambling, rambling kinds of
Yeah.
stuff, a little bit of bluesy kinds of things, but more alt rock without the heaviness, I
Yeah.
would say. And the singer, he's a really great songwriter, and they still do an album a year. And I listened to his lyrics. He was an English teacher for 25 years. His lyrics are great, very inventive melodically. So like there's always, even the first time I heard some of his songs, like there's something really going on. Like this guy's really singing about something.
Yeah.
The first song we played was called Bob Dylan. I wish I could be Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Another one of the songs is called Guitar Hero, and it was basically just saying, we don't need no guitar heroes. We don't need no protest song. Give me something short and stupid so that we can sing along. So it's just,
Yeah.
basically slamming just pop music. I'm like, I'm down with that.
Love that. Love that. Cool. Yeah. This is definitely a follow-up. I want to hear some of that stuff at some point. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
cool. I do want to get back to one thing because I think it is interesting. Like you said, so you talked a little bit about your career arc, going from public radio and then getting into insights, and you worked for some great companies, but then you made the decision to go off on your own. And I'd love to hear a little bit about what was behind that decision, and a little bit more about the types of projects that you typically take on nowadays.
Sure. Um, I could probably sum up my move into consulting with one word, which is desperation. Um, and It definitely was a considered move, but at that point, when I started my business, I've been working in research for 13 years, working for other companies. I spent about 10 years working as account executive uh, in media and entertainment. So that's actually, by the way, that's how I ended up getting into research too, because the only thing I wanted to do was media and entertainment. So I spent the first half
Right.
of my career doing nothing but mainly quantitative work, testing all types of content. We used to test all the pilots for ABC, NBC, Fox. I tested content that went into movie theaters, ad placements, worked for the New York Times, just anything media related. And so I really did love it until I didn't love it so much anymore, in the sense that it took on a sort of sameness to it.
Yep.
And I mentioned that I write, and I found I was at work 9 or 10 hours a day, and I wasn't doing that. My kids were young. I wasn't seeing them. My wife was saying, when are you coming home? I'm like, this isn't working. And I spent probably 2 years interviewing for jobs, and I'd go to everyone. I just called it like a desk in a different place, everything the same. Just meet
Yeah.
new people. And how do you program a survey? Oh, we do it
Yeah.
that way. Okay, well, we'll do. It just felt like I call it the research factory. It was just churn stuff out. And so there was a guy who had left the company and started his own business, and I realized we were hiring him to do work. And so I got together with him. So how does this work? And he
Yeah.
explained like he loved the flexibility. He could choose his projects, which, if you got to pay your mortgage, you can only be so choosy. Um, after I looked at everything, I looked at jobs outside of
Yeah.
research, and I thought, no, I'm not at the point in my life. I have a family support. I don't want to just change everything. And so I said, I'll just give this a try. And if it doesn't work, one of my former bosses has said his experience, what he was told when he started his business was, if it doesn't work out, you can always just get a job. I'm like, if it doesn't work out, I'll just get a job. But let me give it a try.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think in the end, it's probably worked out beyond my wildest dreams in a way, in the sense that I have had that flexibility. I could go to my kid's school and be the yearbook photographer because nobody asked in the middle of the day, where are you? I hope no clients are listening to this. So yeah, so that was great. And then I started doing a lot more qualitative work, which is the
Yeah.
bulk of what I do now, which, given my background, working in media. I would interview musicians that would come through town. The college newspaper, I'd interview musicians. So I
Yep.
already was kind of in that vein. And I am a curious person and interested. So even at any time when I'm like, oh, here we go, another interview, halfway through, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
It just pulls me in. Probably doing your podcast. Probably that feeling like all of a sudden you just don't know where the time went. So um, I the majority of what I do is qualitative. Majority of my clients are other research companies because I still love being part of a team, but I
Hmm.
finish my project and then I go on my way. I do have some end clients, and I still field quant studies too because that's my background. So I like that because that's varied.
Yeah.
And I do almost no media and entertainment research. I still enjoy it, but now I just work across industries. That's what happens in qualitative when you work on your own. Someone says, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" I've done a lot of usability work.
Sure.
So if I'm testing a website or an app, I could do that for most anybody. And
Hmm.
so it's really actually, I think it re-energized my career because not only was I doing something different in a more flexible way, I also could kind of learn sort of like the universal truths about the way people think about things.
Right.
So if I've done one project talking to people about health insurance, and I'm recently just finishing a project talking to people about juice packaging, but I can
Hmm.
take what I learned about the way people would shop for health insurance and what's important in their lives and apply it to what they're thinking when they think about things like being health conscious. What's
Sure.
on that package? It tells me,
Yeah.
so as we were talking before we started recording, like I can pull in all these different things and really add value for a client and not just say, well, hit the three objectives. You should make the package blue and put a picture of an orange on it. Can you send me my check? It's much more, I've seen this other times.
Yeah.
And the way that problem was resolved was by doing this. Or maybe you could think about it in this other way. And that's the part honestly, that's the part I love the most. You said future research consulting, the consulting part. And it's fascinating, Matt, with the way people latch on to qualitative. They could do 1,000-person interview and see a chart and
Yep.
say, "Oh, thanks a lot." And then you hear 10 interviews, like, I got to change everything.
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
hearing someone talk and articulate in a way they never thought about, I love it. And then I can build on that. That's the part I think that really, yeah, really keeps me interested and engaged with what I'm doing. It really makes it fun.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much I can relate to, honestly, in your experience. My journey through insights has also been very broad, drawing connections from those adjacencies, and I've also migrated over time a bit from, hardcore quant to more qualitative, and the breadth of business questions and techniques and ways to address, research challenges, business challenges, has really kept me engaged and interested, both intellectually, but also it's just a fascinating space. So cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So with everything you've seen, you've got a crystal ball, right? So much has changed in the insights industry over time. What do you see in the future? What's becoming more important? I know there's AI and all that good stuff, but from
Yeah.
your experience, what's out there?
Yeah. So when I saw that question in the list, I wrote down, do I have to answer this? Uh, the reason is I was thinking about it. And the last time I saw this I've been doing research for 30 years, which I can't believe, but the last time I saw this level of uncertainty was when online research came in.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden, people were saying, well, what do I have value anymore? Like, I'm the person who runs the phone room. I don't have a
yeah,
job. We can do all this in a week in a way it's taking us 3 weeks, kinds of things, But then there's the sample quality. Are these the right people? Who do we know who answered this? Like
yeah,
all those types of things that we're going through now. If you talk about I got the Quirks magazine, latest one, and it says like it's about AI, synthetic respondents. Is this real data? Is this real information? So then questioning, is this really, is there really value there? Is there a there? I guess is the question, right?
right.
But a few years ago, I heard Jamin Brazil speak at it was the Insights Association conference in Philadelphia. And he said this thing that really struck me, which he said, we have to remind people that what we do is science. And I thought, oh, that's so good because one of my friends who was hiring me to do a project, he kept kind of beating me down on the price, and he finally just said, like, what's the big deal? It's just talking to people. I'm like, go ahead.
Yeah.
You
Be my
know?
guest.
Yeah, exactly. You and I are just talking, but when you are doing research, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, people say, I got SurveyMonkey. I'll put 5 double-barreled questions with a scale that nobody can reply to, but I got responses and I put in a chart and it's research. I was thinking like this is like, 90, 100 years worth of experience
Mhm.
based on science coming out of psychology, coming out of statistics. That's this, there's reasons why we do it this way.
Yep.
And but on the other hand, I was in just listening to a webinar about trying to do, and one person said, like, how it used to be good, fast, or cheap. Now it has to be good, fast, and cheap. All
Yeah.
three things, right?
Yeah.
And some people are like, how dare he? That's never going to happen. And then I said, well, if someone says I want it Thursday, and if it's better than a coin flip, and I can make the decision, I'll do it, as opposed to waiting 6 weeks for, Doug Keith to do all his work and be a genius about it. Nope, we already moved on. So this is just the reality. And we
Yeah.
have to figure out how to work within that reality. And is it working independently? If someone stops calling me and I don't know why, and if it's because they had a bot do 50 surveys in 3 days and they don't need me to do 10 or, in 50 interviews, I don't want to be left behind like that.
Right.
Another thing, Matt, I don't know if you know it, but as I'm one of the co-founders, the Insights Career Network.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great organization.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. But we have 100+ people show up to our meetings twice a month. We have more than 20,000 people following us on LinkedIn, and we
Yeah.
keep getting new people, which we love helping people. But then, our goal would be like no people came because everybody's got the job they love and everything's going great. And there was a period in 2022 was kind of like that, but it's not like that now. So that just tells you there are things happening. Statistically, you can see that things are changing. So, and this is the kind of time I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal, I think, about, now it's the time for white collar workers to have that experience that blue collar workers have, and the factory is all robotic now.
Yeah.
What do I do? Now it's like, well, if AI is taking 3/4 of what I'm doing, what do I do? And it used to be I was like, retrain. Well, yeah, you better start thinking about it. And I'll tell you, Matt, I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and it was almost all AI
Yep.
talks. And I was talking to veterans in the industry, just kind of listening. One person said, look, I'm planning to retire in 5 years. I don't really care about this AI stuff. And I thought to myself, how about 2 years? Maybe you just like to get out now because this is happening. Just
Yeah.
start figuring it out. Don't say, and who wants to be a dinosaur? We've been around a long time, but I never want to be that person. Like he's not hireable anymore because he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't care about what's going on. He's just cruising until the end.
Yeah. Totally.
So, but it's just you really might be seeing it, but so much upheaval and businesses don't know what they should be doing, and the end clients don't know what they should be doing. But I will tell you one funny thing I do hear though, like, okay, we paid for a subscription to a company that we can do all these online interviews with the bot, synthetic respondents, and then they end up coming back to humans saying, could you help us figure this out? Like, we don't really know what this means. We don't know what to do with it. And I think
Mhm.
that's what we'll always have to contribute. We've talked so much in this podcast about being able to pull in all these threads,
Yep.
right? A bot can't do it. A synthetic respondent can't tell you, when I was 5 and my mom got the such and such. You can create an aggregate person, but that person is not a person.
Yep.
And they don't have that unique experience that might change the way you think about everything. And that's where we can continue to add value. And anybody in this industry right now says, well, my job was project management. How do you add value now in a changing world? Start thinking about it right now. Reskill. There's classes you can take online, but just don't get stuck. Don't be the person coming to Insights Career Network saying, like, I haven't kept in touch with anybody. I have no network. I haven't,
Yeah.
learned anything. And, I'm 55. I'm starting from scratch. It's like, just, okay, start today. Even if you have a job, just start today.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Cool. Cool. All right, Doug. So all of our time is it's always squeezed, but we have so much media at our disposal.
Yes.
But this is something that we have, full control of choosing. I'm curious to know from your perspective, as you look at the media landscape, either professional or just trash TV or whatever, what's earning your time?
Yeah, when I saw that question, I really thought about it too. I'm just interested in a lot of stuff, but I'm also great at wasting time. Like I could, use push media, just sit there like, what's on next? What's on next? And I think I'm getting a little better about saying, why don't I choose the content? So during the pandemic, I started listening to podcasts. I'd worked in this space, but I hadn't really listened to them. Started listening to podcasts. Sometimes they're just for fun. Sometimes like I love the screenwriting podcast. I've been listening to, marketing podcasts, how to get things done kind of podcasts. So I've really gotten into that. Um, Look, I know streaming music is killing the music industry, but I do kind of love it.
It's
Just
yeah,
sad. I wish I could give everybody money. Like, just tell me, I'll do Patreon for everybody because I'm like, I can just sample this right now. I can start listening to it right now and become a fan of this right now. So I love that.
yeah,
And I definitely love streaming content. I binge watch some stuff, but my one of my daughters loves YouTube and she'll send me videos. So I've started watching videos on YouTube. And once again, you can pick. I'm going to watch 10 minutes of this content that I'm totally immersed in versus an hour of stuff. I'm like, fine, it was Cupcake Wars and time went by and
yeah,
someone made the best cupcake. And, it's like nothing happened, intellectually or just even emotionally. There was nothing connect. So I love that. And then, made like addicted to New York Times, Wall Street Journal. So love, and then any type of art related content, whether it's about music or movies or TV or artists, fine artists. I'm always looking for the secret sauce in the process.
yeah.
Kind of how you asked me, how did you get into this? Like, how did you create that amazing thing? I was just listening to an interview with the creator of Severance, and he basically had the experience of having a hard breakup, and then just wanting to go to work and just not think about it.
Yeah,
And so just very mundane, and then all of a sudden becomes this huge sci-fi thing. But so much of it is his personal experience, but I love hearing that. Like that just didn't come from
yeah,
somebody saying, "How about if it was an office and their brains were switched off?" No, it's very personal, and I love that finding the personal and that sort of kind of universal. So yeah, Matt, sometimes I got to just go for a walk and not listen to anything, listen to the
yeah,
birds. There's
yeah.
so much content.
Yeah, I have a funny little anecdote to share. This is a cautionary tale. You mentioned Cupcake Wars, and it just reminded me. I used to live in Chicago, and there's great little karaoke bar called the Blue Frog that I used to go to downtown. And after I left, I came back. I was there for business, and it was a Wednesday night or whatever when the karaoke Marioke was her name. She did her thing, and so I went. And the night before, I was in my hotel room and I was watching one of these cake wars, making these big tiered cakes, and it was the finale. And there was a baker from Chicago who worked at one of the hotels downtown, and he made this amazing cake. And on the way to display it, it all collapsed, right? So he didn't win. He finished in second place, but he was at the karaoke bar. I'm like, oh my God, I just saw him last night. So I go up to this guy and I'm like, dude, man, I just watched you last night on, whatever the network was. And his face, he went from having this great time to
Oh
all
no,
of a sudden he just turned ash white. I
no,
completely ruined his night by bringing this
no.
thing up because he was not excited about being on the show and being a finalist. He was utterly crushed about what had happened, and I just totally ruined his
No.
night. So be careful when you see people from reality TV in real life. It might ruin their night.
That's so funny though, because I mean I've had that experience multiple times. You can tell I love talking to people about their process. And if I go see a band, like there's this one band I've been seeing a couple times recently, Palmyra, they start out sort of like an old timey thing, young guys, but they're kind of moving a little bit more like into folk rock kinds of stuff and getting better and better. And every time I see them, I end up cornering each one of them and talking about music and so this lyric and this guy. And I'm like, oh my God, they just want to I'm sure they're excited for a few minutes, but this is just their job. Just like
Yeah.
kind of like, I said, I want to talk about market research every minute. And they must be like, yeah, it was really hard to write. But the one it is funny though, on a side note, the guy he plays basically cello and then he plays it as a bass. And I asked him, like, are you classically trained? I am. I said, well, where'd you get that technique from? That came from the orchestra. Like he was real excited that anybody
Yeah,
had noticed,
for
versus
sure.
that was the one thing. But then I need to learn to walk away. So you have a
Yeah.
good night, as opposed to let me ask you five more questions and it becomes an interrogation. So you're exactly right. You don't know. You're excited, but how could you have known? He might have said, wasn't that fun? You couldn't know. He might have
Oh,
blown off, but you couldn't know.
his creations were absolutely amazing. It was just for me, it was just incident, just a little thing of bad luck. But I mean,
Yeah,
he was a creative genius, is
yeah,
what I saw.
yeah. Right.
But he didn't ever want that episode ever to be seen again.
Oh yeah. I don't know. How do you ever? That's like the stuff of movies, right? That's the first act.
Yeah,
And then trying to recover from this humiliation, whatever it is, and find your
that's
new
right.
path and all that. But that's it. That's like whatever the hill you die on or whatever it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, you hit the key topic, Doug. You hit the key topic, which is music, which gets to my very favorite question in this discussion. And so I hope you've had a chance to give it a little bit of a think. So, Doug, you've name dropped, a few bands here along the way, but I have no idea. I'm super curious what your answer is to this. Let's say you're stranded on a desert island, right? You have
Yeah.
3 albums of your choosing to keep you company
Yes.
for the rest of your days. What are
Yes. So of course I gave this thought. And
they?
of course it's really hard to choose, but I do have three. So, and I kind of did them in the order they just came into my mind. So the first album is the Cars debut album.
Ah, yeah, interesting.
Yes, and I was probably about 14 when that album came out, and I made a new best friend, and we started listening to that album together, and it became the thing where every day after school we'd go home, back to his house, eat grilled cheese sandwich, listen to the album all the way through, go out and skateboard. He was great. I was terrible. And walk the neighborhood and all this stuff. And that was like every day that was the ritual. And then I'd go
Yeah,
home and listen to it on headphones. That was, the olden days. Put on the album, listen to headphones. And I just loved everything about it. It was so because it was a new style of music. It
yeah,
wasn't progressive rock. It wasn't hard rock. It was like, what is happening here? Plus, they dressed really cool. Like the whole thing. I'm like,
yeah,
yes. It was the first time like I am in tune with this.
yeah,
I started feeling like I'm a person. Like I could talk about this. This is not just what my friends mention. Like this is my thing and my friend's thing. And I mean, plus the guitarist Ellie Easton from that band says he calls that their greatest hits album because there were so many great songs on it.
yeah,
And I know every word and I know it all note for note. And that was the time when I would listen to everything and I'd read every lyric and I could tell you everybody who played the side musicians and where they took the picture. I just loved all of that. And that's the thing I'm sad with streaming music. Like I now buy the album because I want to see everything. But that's the first
me
one.
too. Cars, great choice. I love the Cars.
Okay.
All right.
The second one that I thought of was, and this really is the order that came to my head. U2 Unforgettable Fire.
Uh-huh. Classic.
So the reason I picked this one, so I think a junior in college that came out. I saw U2 on the War Tour in Philadelphia, like at a 2,000 seat theater. I mean, clearly, amazing.
Yeah.
And then that tour, they're playing in this arena. I was in school in South Carolina, drove to Atlanta to see them. And so like that was like a religious experience. Like Bono is like a church leader in that sense. When he goes like, no more, no. Everybody's yes, yes. And then they would play that song 40 at the end, which is a psalm, and then they would leave the stage one at a time until the drummer's just sitting there. Nobody's singing, he's just playing the beat and he gets up and leaves. I just got chills just even thinking about it. And I'm like in the rafters. I can, and
Yeah.
nobody's embarrassing. And that's, but the song, Pride in the Name of Love.
Hmm.
Like I think about anything. I think that might be my all-time favorite song because if you took the lyrics out of it, I'm like, I love the music.
Yeah.
And then I listen to the lyrics, I'm like, but this is really saying something. I know Bono can be overblown and everything, but still, he's really saying something and it feels meaningful. And the combination of those two things, that's what the Cars didn't have. I'm like, what is he talking about? That's cool. Here, I'm like,
Yeah.
I know what he's talking about. And again, I love what he's talking about. So that's, and that whole album is really experimental. They went from War, which was had experimental stuff on it, but this thing like working with Brian Eno and some expansive sounds and I had done like, some experimental music when I was in college. I took a class where we put like reel-to-reel tape all around the room, so you
Yeah.
could these giant loops of things. And we had an ancient synthesizer and experiment with sounds. And so I loved that they were experimenting with that. And again, just felt so different.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, that's number two. And then number three, and I'm gonna like add two fast honorable mentions at the end because otherwise it would make me
Fair
sound so.
enough.
Number three is Steely Dan Asia.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the
Absolutely.
reason I picked that, and I'm looking at your posters back there, like, oh my God, what is he listening to? So where's the Motorhead? So that and Billy Joel's A Stranger were the first LPs I bought when I was like 12 years old. My dad took
Yeah.
me in the store, get some out. That was another one I went home and I listened to it. Not I saw an ad on TV for it. I'm like, that looks cool. I didn't know anything about them. And I remember listening to it and it was there's so many things going on. And the musicianship is, of course, unbelievable. The lyrics, again, kind of obtuse. Um, but and then there's jazz elements. I'm kind of, what is this other
Yeah.
thing that's in here? Like there's amazing drum solo, but then there's these chords. I don't really get those. They're very complex. And that was another one. I can tell you everybody that played on it. I've watched videos about it. And that's like, I think those three albums are to me for me, are kind of like perfect albums. Like I enjoy
Yeah.
all of it. Like, well, here comes the bummer. Once I get past the bummer, it'll be okay. It's like everything's really great about it. So those are the three. But I wanted to make sure I didn't sound like, so the guy stopped listening to music in 1984. So I love new music. I love going to see new bands, and two bands that I really like are Snail Mail. Snail Mail's a singer, Lindsay Jordan, but she is the band.
Okay.
And she has three albums out, and her second album was like the first real production that she'd done. And it's this sort of dream pop, but it's three-piece. She's a really tremendous guitarist, very inventive guitarist. Like she loved was Thurston Moore, what was the band? Sonic Youth. Like she loved
Oh,
the
right.
yeah, right, kind of stuff. And so that album's really great. And then she did the next album's kind of more like a more rock and really inventive. And it's funny listening to some young woman, 20s, what she's saying about. I'm like, I got that. I remember that heartbreak, and I also love the lyrics and creativity. Another band I really like right now is Japanese Breakfast. So
Don't
Michelle
know
Zhang,
them.
yeah, Michelle Zauner. She actually she lived in Philadelphia for a good while, and the band got started here. But she actually did a really successful memoir called "Crying in H Mart." It's being turned into a
Huh.
movie now, and it's about her life growing up. And she's half Korean and growing up in two cultures and being an alternative person, but not being able to, put that into
Yeah.
words. And her mother got cancer, is passing away, and she's like also has to become a different person. Again, really beautiful music, incredibly thoughtful, a wide variety of music. Yeah, really cool. So I'm going to see them coming up, and in May. Now they're playing like 5,000 seat theaters. So she's,
Oh,
and by the way, you really appreciate it. Last time I saw her play, it was this sort of three band festival thing, and she stopped. She said, "I just want to tell you, I've been talking to my friends, and the struggle is real." And what she talked about was trying to make it as an artist, and she talked about playing somebody's yard, and it's like 10 bands and they're not going on until 2 in the morning, and she's laying on this dirty mattress just trying to rest before, and she's like, why am I doing this? And she said, and then she played the music and like that was amazing. And she
yeah.
said, but and most people don't ever make it, and her bands really made it.
Yeah.
has a very successful, you can call them indie band, but they're, they play 5,000 seat theaters. She does soundtracks now for video games. Like she's very
Yeah, that's
creative
legit.
artist. So I totally admire that. And so I had to put those two in because I don't just listen to classic rock. It's
Yeah,
funny, I hardly even lit those records I mentioned. I don't listen to them that on. I often they're probably all stuck in my head.
yeah.
So playing back in my head.
No, I really appreciate the shout out with the new music. I always love to discover new music. My daughter is 20.
Yeah.
We find new music together, and so I'm definitely going to take these back to her, see if she knows them.
Yeah.
We've got some concerts coming up together. We're great concert pals, so I'll keep an eye out for
What's
these.
something you're excited about seeing with her?
We have Beach Bunny coming up. Beach Bunny is a great indie pop band from
Yeah,
Chicago.
that's
Super catchy, just absolutely love them. We're also going to see XTC, EXTC, which
yes,
is
I've
the
seen that.
band.
I haven't
Have you?
seen it, but I know about it. It was the drummer,
Yeah,
right? It's the drummer from the original
yeah,
drummer
yeah.
from
So
the band.
no Andy Partridge. I mean, they can
That's right.
claim that they're XTC, right? Because you got
That's
the
why it's the EX
yeah.
part.
So
Yes.
I turned my daughter on to XTC. I said, she was in a bad mood. I said, hey, you know when you're in a bad mood? Take a listen to this song called The Mayor of Simpleton.
Oh my God.
And it just changed her life. So we have we
Plus,
bond.
if you want to talk about a really hard bass part, so
Oh
I've tried to
yeah.
learn that. I've learned the whole bass part, but I've watched people play it, and I mean, that is not a quarter note. There's so much going on in that, which I love, but he is an amazing bass player. And
Totally.
there's a great documentary. It's like more than an hour long. It's an interview with Andy Partridge talking about songwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, but it is really because he is a very strange guy. And when I was in high school, my best friend who I listened to the Cars with, he loved XTC, and XTC was coming to Philadelphia when we were seniors, and then they canceled and never toured again because he had terrible stage fright,
Oh
and
yeah.
and so he had a hard time playing, and his girlfriend recommended like he take LSD or something that would like make it better for him. And he went on stage and had a complete freak out. And he said, I'm never doing this again.
Oh
So
man.
yeah, which is a shame because like in videos, they had lots of great energy and he was such a cool, quirky guy. And
Yeah.
I love XTC. Love it.
Yeah. Totally. So that's what we got on tap.
Oh, it's
So
great.
let me tell you, Doug, I can't wait till I see you at IIEX because we're going to talk this stuff in more depth. There's a lot. I can already tell that there's a whole lot of common ground musically. Even though you're seeing the Slayer and the Motorhead, I am definitely a punk guy and a pop guy as well,
Yeah.
and all of those territories where they meet. So
Yes, yeah. I'm the same. I'm the same for sure.
yeah.
Uh, and I like that. I don't just want to do the same thing. It's just that does get really boring.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So quick reminder for listeners, if you want to try this Magic Mind, I highly recommend it. You can get a nice discount. Go to magicmind.com/RNRLT. Check it out. Let me know what you think. And hey, if you're going to IIEX, we will both see you there later this month. If you're not going, certainly consider it. Doug, I have so enjoyed this conversation. Looking forward to continuing it in just a few weeks. So get ready. I will.
Oh yeah, same.
I,
This has been amazing. Like, I know you have to wrap it up, but I could definitely talk for hours. That's why we have to go to a separate location where
that's right.
where people don't have to listen to the rest of this conversation. But I'm very honored and excited to have been a guest on your podcast. I saw someone at QRCA out on the dance floor wearing one of your t-shirts. I'm like, hey, that's so cool, man. Your brand spreads. So, but it's awesome. I love that you do this.
Well, it ain't rock and roll without merch. So there you
That's
go.
right. Absolutely.
All right, Doug. Thanks so much for the great chat.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon. Rock and
Yeah.
roll.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.